Got to get used to this. How's everybody doing tonight? It's 8:34 and we're still here. I got to follow Kurt, though. So I got something I want to talk to you tonight about. Two things. One is about being uncomfortable, and the other is about being safe. I'm clearly going to take care of the uncomfortable part up here. But can you help me by keeping me safe? Yes. All right, let's go. In the summer of 1984, I started going to work with my grandpa. My grandpa built great, big, beautiful custom brick homes. That's me and my grandpa that day, 40 feet up in the air, putting the last brick on the house that we were building. I learned a lot from my grandpa that summer. I learned a lot about his trade, his craftsmen, and about his tools that he brought with him. Every day, he brought these same three tools with him. It was a carton of cigarettes, a six-pack of beer, and a .45 caliber pistol. And as I got older, I looked back at that, and I wondered how that made the guys that he worked with feel. Did it make them uncomfortable? Did it make them feel safe? I'm not sure, but I do know my grandpa brought those every single day. So after I graduated from high school, of course, I went into construction. And I worked with a lot of guys who reminded me a lot of my grandpa. They were hard workers, a little rough around the edges. And that ego and that tough guy mentality was everywhere. And at the end of the day, they got the jobs done, but at what cost? Fast forward, years later, I'm working right down the street here as a superintendent, digging for a parking structure at Vancouver Center. Tough job, lots of stuff going on. And I had a lot of challenges on that job. And one day, I needed to talk to my boss about those challenges. So I went down to the office, and I wanted to share all the things that I was experiencing and what I needed help with. And that's when it happened. He blew up. He started yelling and screaming at me, completely berating me. He was so loud that one of the guys came in to close the door to his office. And he looked at him and he said, "You leave that fucking door open. I want everyone to hear this." I was humiliated, completely humiliated. I walked out of his office, I went back to the job, and a couple days later, he showed up at the job. And he said, "You know what, Mike? You didn't do yourself any favors that day." I said, "Well, maybe I didn't. But I knew I had some stuff that I needed help with. And the stuff I needed help with affected this job and affected this company, and I thought you needed to know." It was a few months later, I quit that job. It was just way too toxic. So in 2005, when I decided to start my own business, I wanted to do things totally different. I wanted to do things in a way that I'd never seen before. I wanted to create the most uncomfortably safe place that you'd ever worked. Sounds crazy, right? Nate's crazy, I'm crazy. But I wanted to create a place where people could just come and be who they are, and we could help them become who they really wanted to be. I wanted to create this spot where we could make building people as much of a priority as building projects. I didn't know what a big challenge that was going to be, but I'd soon find out. So what is uncomfortably safe? Well, what I've learned is the more uncomfortable we get and the safer we make it, the more success we have. So that means we're going to talk about the tough issues, but guess what? Nobody's going to die. In fact, because we're talking about the tough issues, we're actually going to thrive. And that was a little challenging. To see everything that I had experienced in construction was everything was led with ego. And I was trying to do things in a whole different way. See, I was trying to lead with humility, and that took its toll on me. So as years go on, the toll of the work and the toll of a really tough divorce was starting to weigh on me, and I found myself in a pretty broken place. I didn't know what to do to make my life better. I didn't know what decisions to make or how to move forward. So I started doing a lot of research, reading books, and I found a good therapist. Thank God for Diane, because she heard everything. I used to go see her every Friday for 2 hours, pouring my guts out to this lady. And you know what? It sucked. It absolutely sucked. Being completely uncomfortable, completely vulnerable to this lady who I didn't know from Adam. But one thing she always did is she made it safe for me. So I walked into her office one day after going to her for quite a while. And I said, you know what, Diane? I was going to call you today and not come to the appointment. I was done. This stuff isn't fun. I don't enjoy digging up everything from my past and putting it in front of you and processing it. It wears me out. And since I like to have fun, this isn't part of it. I said, you really have to dig deep in this work. I mean, this is hard stuff. Going through everything that's happened in your life, from the day you were born until the day you're standing here. She said, you know what, Mike, you're right. You do have to dig deep. In fact, I'm glad you mentioned that. Because I used to send people into downtown Portland where they were digging this big hole in the ground. She said, I wanted them to see all the work that was going on in this hole. She says, Mike, do you know why they dig those holes so deep? Kind of laughed. Well, it is what I do. But tell me, please. So she went on to share that, you know, Mike, the deeper that they dig, the stronger the foundation. And the stronger the foundation, the taller the building can be. When that building is done and complete, and you get up and you stand at the top of that, you see things that you'd never see from any other view. And that building is filled with people and productivity and life, and they're meant to last many lifetimes. So I thought about that for a second. I said, Diane, where was that project? And she began to describe it to me. And when she did, it hit me. That was Fox Tower. And I was part of the team that dug that very hole. I took a long pause. I shed a tear. So did she. And it made me really think about why I was there. She said, you know, when that one got done, I sent him to another place, a place in downtown. She said, you know, it wasn't as deep of a hole, but it was a lot bigger round. And I laughed because, as you now know, I dug that hole too. But how could both of these projects from my life be so intertwined in the story of me digging deep? Made me think about the projects that we were doing, all the work that went on in there, all the old stuff that we had to dig up, foundations that we would dig on for weeks and weeks and weeks that were really tough to get out of there. Hard work. We dig up old brick water wells that were once filled with life-giving water, were now filled with garbage. But we were building something totally new. Buildings that were going to bring life to our community. Buildings that were meant to last many lifetimes. So I started thinking, what would it look like if we used that same theory, building projects, but around building people? What could we do? How could we make a change? We put so much effort into building these great buildings, but it takes a toll on the people doing it. And over the years, I've got to work with tons of people, lots of great, great guys. And one guy in particular who could build just about any project you could imagine. as long as it wasn't a person. You see, his skills at building projects didn't transfer to building people. I mean, he was a great guy. He was really smart. You hand him a set of plans and he'd get the job done. But it had some costs. You see, he was pretty tough on people. And one day, I had to sit down and talk with that guy. I said, you know, Dave, we're in the people building business. And we can't build people if we're tearing them down. But I have some ideas. I have some thoughts. There's some things that I've learned digging deep in myself that helped me become a better man, a better leader. You see, Dave had a great heart. He cared a lot. But somebody taught him how to be like that. And it was probably his dad. And I looked at Dave and I said, you know, you're smart. You've got a good heart. I know you can learn a new way. So I made him an offer. Dave, I'm going to give you a credit card, and I'm going to give you a piece of paper with a phone number on it, and I want you to make a call. And I want you to get an appointment with this therapist and just tell him your story. Tell him who you are. Tell him what's going on. What do you struggle with? Dave wasn't a real talkative guy, and he always hated it when I told him that I loved him. But that was my secret gift. That was the thing where he knew he could actually go do that. So he agreed, and he started his journey of therapy. Now, mind you, this is probably 10, 12 years ago. So he started his journey, and I started tracking him as well. I'd go out and see him on jobs, see how he was doing. I went out to see Dave one day, and I said, Dave, how are you doing today? And he took a long pause, and he had a tear in his eye. And he said, they can help me. I said, of course they can help you, Dave. You're freaking awesome. You're smart. You got a good heart. You got this. And Dave was off to the races, doing his work. So you might be wondering, mental health, construction, what's the deal, Mike? Well, would it surprise you to know that construction has the highest rate of suicide of any industry out there? Would it be shocking to hear that guys die from suicide in construction at 5 times the rate they do of all other deaths in construction, working on the job? 5 times? Would it surprise you to know that construction suicide deaths are 4 times the national rate? And guys like me and many other guys in this room die at nearly 4 times the rate of women. And as Nate said, who's talking about that? I am. And I've kind of tried to make it my mission to change that. So in 2017, I decided to start a nonprofit called Dig Deep. And it's all about helping rebuild the foundations of employees' lives. It's all about getting them the help that they need so that they can thrive, so that they can learn how to get uncomfortably safe and make things happen. And that same guy, Dave, who started that many years ago, came to me this year at 61 years old. And he said, you know, Mike, I don't think I'm done yet. I'd really like to go back. And I said, Dave, there's no time like the present. So today, Dave's back doing Dig Deep. He's making changes, and he kind of has a cult following. The guy who everybody hated working with now is like this rock star. He knows how to teach people, and he's got a great heart, and people love him for that. It's pretty amazing. And how it works is you work for me. I'll give you a year's worth of therapy on my dime with a copay. That way, there's no way you can turn that down. And after a year, you decide you're worth your own work and your own investment. And people do. Because what I've learned in my world is the road of ego is the one that takes us to the dark place. It's the place where we go when we can't share anything with anyone. It's very dark, it's very hard, and it's the thing that we cover up all the sore spots in us. We don't want anybody to see. It's where the tempers flare and the numbing tools of the trade come into play, where we use drugs and alcohol to cope with the stress of the life that we have. And last year, this deadly thing called suicide hit me in a place that I never thought it would. My brother took his life. My brother ran a construction battalion in the military. I knew my brother was struggling. I knew he was having a hard time. And he made a choice. And it pissed me off. It made me very angry and very sad all at the same time. And I said, you know what, John? I'm going to double down now. We're going to fix this. Because his story was his, but our story is ours, and we can make a change. And I have some ideas on how we can do that. How do we create an environment where we can help people become their best at home, at work? Why don't we make building people a priority? That's the number one. We can build all the other stuff, but if we're not building people and making a priority, where are we going to get? Use tools that can help you understand what you and your team is all about. What motivates them? What drives them? Being courageous enough to get up here and get uncomfortable, right? We have to each start with that. And then we also have to make sure that we can let others get comfortable by making sure we create that safety for them. And last but not least, we've got to change how we get access to mental health. There aren't enough therapists. We've got to change the stigma, and we've got to create way better access and make it as easy as going to the doctor and having your temperature checked. Because what I've learned is that vulnerability is the real strength, right? It's not the ego, but vulnerability. A place where we can really get uncomfortably safe. That's where we grow. That's where we stretch. That's where we learn new things. That's where we talk about what's not said. We don't leave anything unsaid. We can just say it. So tonight, I just want to ask you a couple questions. What is it going to look like for you to get with your team and start getting uncomfortably safe? What goals are out there that you've yet to achieve? What dreams are still unrealized? And maybe it's time for all of us to dig deep and get uncomfortably safe. Thank you.